Hey, everybody. So in this video, I'd like to focus on the economic aspects of the war in Iran, not just how things are affecting Iran. We will talk about how the economic blockade and the other things the United States is doing all those things are affecting Iran and moving it towards collapse. But we're also going to talk about, in the later part of the video, how some of the moves that the United States is making to support allies at this time, to support allies economically, and which is also, I think, part of the fuller picture of the economic warfare. So we're going to start with an excerpt from Victor Davis Hanson's most recent update. We're not going to play his whole update, just a piece of it. And then we are going to see a few clips from U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and that will round out the picture. So let's go ahead and first watch a short clip of Victor Davis Hanson.
That said, what do we do at this point? There is a blockade. Time is on our side. The Iranians' strategy has been delay, negotiate, delay, lie, backpedal, go forward, confuse, delay, delay, delay. Why are they trying to do it? They're hoping that public opinion in the United States, on the side of the left, as we've said before, we have Senator Murphy saying it's awesome when he digests propaganda from the Iranian Ministry of Information and says that boats have broken the blockade. He likes that. They pick up on that. They absorb it. And that gives them confidence to keep delaying. They feel that they can last for 6 months. They cannot last for 6 months. The blockade is working. The debanking is working. Their oil wells are reaching a critical point in a week or so where they either have to shut down with irreparable damage or they have to find some cast-off tankers or somebody to store this oil that's coming out of the ground, or maybe just to dig holes and pump it in. But they are desperate. They're losing $400 to $500 million in economic input, and it's starting to hurt all four of these cliques that claim they represent the government. So what are we supposed to do about it? I would suggest that Donald Trump does not differentiate these PT boats, whether they're laying mines or boarding ships. Whatever they are doing, they should not be in the Straits of Hormuz. We should have an ultimatum that says any boat, for any reason, that's a military craft that leaves an Iranian port should be considered an enemy engaged in hostile action, whether it's boarding tankers or it's laying mines, and they will be destroyed. That's all they have. That's the only military arm that matters now. We're not going to go in there in the ground and fight their army. Their air defenses are shot. Their navy otherwise is destroyed, as is their air force. Just finish the job and say nobody gets in any ship that's a military craft and gets into the Gulf. And then at some point, if in 2 weeks, I would give a week or two, and if these demands are not made, that they surrender their enriched uranium, they surrender their ballistic missile fleet, and they cut off the subsidies to their terrorist proxies, then the United States says, these are the targets that are going to be hit. And then we're going to go home. We don't have to say we're going to go home, but we should just go home. And those targets would be a series of bridges, transportation hubs, media, television stations, and if you want bridges that have dual use for the military. They don't have to be done all at once. They just say, if you're not going to negotiate and you insist on retaining the possibility or the chance or the real viability of a nuclear weapons program, and you're still going to build drones and ballistic missiles and attack your neighbors and disrupt the oil supply of the Gulf and attack Israel and kill Americans, then this is what's going to happen. We are going to systematically start to hit things to accelerate the economic blockade. And I think very quickly they will concede. If they do not concede, we should systematically go down the list of targets, and then when we reach a point in which our military feels that we've so crippled the military industrial complex and the nuclear complex of Iran that we can go home, we can leave a carrier on rotating duty near the Gulf and go Persian Gulf and go home. and concentrate on the economy. And I think Iran will look at themselves and they'll see that we have no economy, we're flat broke, we've lost 50-year investments, probably $500 billion of military infrastructure and weapons arsenal, and the people will take care of the rest, the Iranian people. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis.
Okay, so let's just sum up what we heard there from Victor Davis Hanson. That this economic warfare is absolutely working. $400 to $500 million a day are being lost by the Iranian regime. Very soon, they're not going to be able to pay their people. And his attitude is, let's just keep up the pressure and keep pressing forward and let the Iranian people do the rest when these guys finally, when things come to a head, which they're going to in the next couple of days. Now, I saw a clip on Fox News of Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, where he was on Kudlow, and he was talking about, we're not going to watch this whole clip either, just he talks about the economic warfare, and he said some things that I wasn't fully aware of. I thought it was very illuminating. I wanted to share it with you in terms of what the United States is actually doing economically to target the Iranian regime. Here we go.
All right, Operation Economic Fury is helping to win the war. Coming from the Treasury Department, we welcome back Treasury Secretary Mr. Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, thank you for this. I know you're a very busy chap, but your economic fury is doing a lot, and it's sort of offshore bank accounts and shipping issues. And I love this, the teapot refiners off the coast of China. Can you just tell us a little more about this? Because I think this is going to be very powerful stuff and is already having an impact.
Larry, good to be with you. And to be clear, the president gave the order for max pressure campaign more than a year ago. He gave it to me and Treasury last March. It was that pressure that brought the Iranian economy to a standstill in December that led to the protest. The largest bank in Iran collapsed. The central bank had to monetize the debt, and that created massive inflation. Their currency is down about 60 or 70% versus the US dollar, so they're in the middle of a currency crisis. And what we're doing now is, we've been in a long race and we are sprinting for the finish line. President Trump told me 3 weeks ago to up the pressure again, and we have gone to the buyers of Iranian oil and told them that we are willing to do secondary sanctions on your industries, on your banks who tolerate Iranian oil in their system. One of the big mistakes out of many that the Iranian leadership made was bombing their GCC counterparts, because for years we had heard that there was no IRGC money in their bank accounts. Now they've become more transparent, and we are freezing those bank accounts for the Iranian people. And we can see that every day it is more pressure on the regime. The retirement funds that they thought that they had outside of Iran, we are freezing. We're holding those for the Iranian people. Same with all their villas in the south of France and all over the world. And we are going to track them down, and we are going to continue the economic pressure, as well as the block on the Strait of Hormuz.
I mean, these ILGC thugs, they've been looting and robbing Iranian citizens for decades and decades, and you're finally catching up to them. You're actually, in some cases, seizing assets, are you not?
That's right, Larry. We were able to grab about 350 million crypto assets, and then on top of another 100 that we had recently gotten. So we're almost at $500 million there. And we are freezing bank accounts everywhere. More importantly, we are making people less willing to deal with the regime. And then, so it's the economic fury along with the blockade, because now the port at Kharg Island is at a virtual standstill in terms of loadings. We think that the Iranian storage will be full soon. They'll have to start capping in their wells, which will lead to permanent problems. And, again, the regime won't be able to pay their soldiers. And equally important, Larry, is they won't be able to fund their proxies, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, around the world. Because one of President Trump's goals in this was to stop Iran's ability to project terrorist power around the world. Iran was the largest sponsor of state terrorism around the world. They've been killing Americans for the past 47 years, and that's coming to a stop now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is huge, a very informative clip. Let me just clarify one term of art that was used in this, where Larry Kudlow mentioned the teapot refineries. If you don't know what that term means, teapot refineries, they're called teapot refineries. They're quote unquote independent refineries. Nothing's really independent in China, in the Chinese Communist Party's People's Republic of China. Nothing's really independent. But what they are is these small refineries that are kind of like, they're just private, and they take oil that has been moved around in what's called shadow fleets. If you've heard that phrase recently, shadow fleets are these boats that what they do is they take oil, they put a flag of some country that isn't Iran on it, and then they take it out into the ocean. They meet up with another boat, and they'll mix the oil. They'll move it from boat to boat. Sometimes they'll mix it with oil from a couple different countries. It's kind of like laundering money. They'll move it around the world. They'll even go up to, and this is where Venezuela often played a role here, where they would actually ship oil from Iran to Venezuela and then back to China. They would move it around so that it's harder to track, and then bring it to these refineries that are not large official government refineries, and it just makes it easier to conceal Iranian oil. And the United States is now cracking down on the teapot refineries, and that means that they're going deeper into the Iranian money flow around the world. He mentioned the crypto, and he also mentioned this worldwide network of terrorism. And that brings up an issue that I've been wondering about since the beginning of this war, which is the Iranian regime is not just in Iran. It's not like the Syrian regime or the Iraqi Saddam Hussein regime or Gaddafi in Libya, where they're just governing their own or ruling their own little country, or even North Korea. North Korea doesn't have an international network. Iran was like a terrorist superpower. They have a massive international network. A lot of the drugs flowing across the southern border of the United States have their origins with Hezbollah networks. Hezbollah has bases of operation in South America and Paraguay, for many years in Venezuela. And I've always wondered about, what about all these networks, the drug networks, the trafficking networks that Iran has built around the world? How do they fit into the collapse of the regime? And you see here that the Trump administration is targeting all of that. It's targeting all of it, and making sure that there's no revenue streams coming into the Iranian regime. And ultimately, when the regime collapses, you can see that the Trump administration is really doing a comprehensive job. This is not a sloppy operation. They're doing a very comprehensive job bringing down the entire network of operation. I just found that to be a very revealing clip from Scott Bessent, talking about all the different things that they're doing in terms of seizing assets, and mentioning seizing the assets for the Iranian people, meaning that the intention is to give these assets back to the people they've been stolen from. He talked about seizing their villas around the world. It's pretty clear that the Venezuela action, the timing of it, had everything to do with Iran when you look back on it, because he even mentioned that they already had put these very strong sanctions on Iran, which led to the economic collapse, meaning after the 12-day war, which led to the economic collapse in Iran, which led to the protests, which led to this war. Well, in the middle of all that, the Venezuela thing happened. Why is that so important? Because Venezuela and Iran were more than just allies. The Chavez Maduro regime was more than just allies with Iran. They were really like business partners. They were very integrated. Their economies were integrated. It was like one big mafia cartel. They worked together. And a lot of the Iranian leadership had escape homes or what you might call vacation homes in Venezuela that they always had their eye on, that they would run away to if the regime ever fell apart. That's obviously off the table with the Americans running Venezuela now. But the amount of financial involvement between the Maduro regime and the regime in Tehran was very, very complex, and ran very deep. And the decapitation of the Maduro regime was actually, you have to view it as the first step in the undoing of this global Iranian terrorist and drug trafficking and human trafficking network that they had built around the world. I mean, Iran really was kind of a sick, dark superpower that's being taken down. And here you get a glimpse into all the work that's being done that we don't see, that doesn't make the headlines as much. And it doesn't, it's not bombing. And when people talk about the war, they don't think about it. But this is what really ends up pulling down the regime, is the stuff that Scott Bessent was talking about. Now, later on in the interview, they talked about American domestic issues for a while. And then later on in the interview, they started talking about the United Arab Emirates. And this is interesting because I made a video the other day, and maybe you saw it, but you certainly, hopefully saw the headline that the UAE pulled out of OPEC. And the timing was so interesting. Why did the UAE pull out of OPEC right now? And the background of it, simply, if you read any news stories, is that OPEC, the oil cartel, was really run by Saudi Arabia. And being part of OPEC meant that if you're an OPEC member, you had to cap your oil production at a certain number, and the UAE has much more capacity than they were producing because of the restraints of OPEC, and they wanted to leave OPEC because it wasn't really beneficial to them to stay in OPEC anymore. That was the story from yesterday. But then Scott Bessent, this conversation between Kudlow and Scott Bessent shed much more interesting light on what's going on with the UAE and their relationship to the United States and this war right now. So let's take a look at that.
One is, I kind of love what you did with the UAE. You gave them dollar swap lines. They weren't in trouble, but they're part of the dollar group now, not the yuan or the petro-yuan group. And they're leaving OPEC. They can produce a couple million barrels more per day, from maybe 2.5 million to as much as 5 million. The UAE has chosen to side with the United States in the dollar bloc. I think that's most significant. Whatever you did, whatever you have up your sleeve, Mr. Bessent, I think is a pretty clever play.
Look, the UAE and several other Gulf countries and some of our Asian allies have requested swap lines. And to be clear, Larry, that a swap line is not a bailout, that it is just a swap for U.S. dollars for the local currency at a fixed price. It is either done from the Fed or Treasury to the central bank. It is the ironclad credit. These are some of the most liquid countries in the world, and they just asked for the swap line as another layer of prevention and safety. So we are happy to support our allies during this time. And this is when, during a conflict, we stand by them and we show our support both militarily and economically. And the UAE has made the decision to get out of OPEC, which is why I'm confident that once we get on the other side of this conflict, that we will see oil prices and gasoline prices lower than they were when the conflict began. And if you look at the forward crude market, it's telling you the same thing.
I mean, they've basically chosen free markets over price controls. And my guess, I don't know, Venezuela, Ecuador, Nigeria, they may follow suit. The Abraham Accords may go a lot lower. The dollar system, you've always been a strong dollar guy. That's why I think this is a great move. I'm not sure people understand just how important this UAE thing is, but I wanted to highlight it. Last thing.
Okay. So now let me tell you what we're talking about with the swap line. You see this headline here: UAE seeks U.S. dollar swap line to ease bank liquidity. And this is a story that ran exactly 2 days ago. Okay, so this is, let me explain what this is. So the UAE asked the U.S. for special financial arrangement. It's called a currency swap. Okay, this came up because there's because of the conflict. And it's causing disruption to the UAE economy. So what's a currency swap? Think of it like like a temporary lending agreement between two countries' central banks, right? The equivalent of national treasuries, right? The UAE central bank would say to the US Federal Reserve, lend us some dollars now, we'll give them back later. It's basically a safety net that makes dollars easier and cheaper to access. The UAE's currency, the dirham, is pegged to the US dollar, meaning its value is fixed to the dollar. So the UAE's banking system runs heavily on dollars. And because of the war with Iran, fewer dollars are flowing through trade and tourism, causing a cash crunch for local banks. So the UAE is not broke. As he said there, these are some of the richest liquid countries in the world. They have over $2 trillion in investment assets. They have 300 billion in foreign currency reserves. And so this isn't about financial desperation or anything. It's about making it cheaper and easier for them to manage a temporary dollar shortage. And it also sends a political signal that the UAE is a trusted, stable ally that the United States is helping out. The bottom line is this: the UAE is not in financial trouble. That's not what this, as he said, it's not a bailout. People need to people can misunderstand a headline. The UAE is asking for some dollars from the US. It's asking for a dollar lifeline as a precautionary measure, as a way of cementing its relationship with the US. It's like a wealthy person with plenty of assets in the bank asking for a short-term credit line because it's more convenient than selling off investments right now. Think of it that way. That's probably the best way to describe it. Now, the reason I think this is significant in terms of the war is that think about what was just said about their leaving OPEC and the timing of it. Because the thing about the leaving OPEC was, it was obviously a massive headline, but the timing was so interesting, like right in the middle of this whole crisis. Why don't they wait till the crisis is over? What are they doing this now for? So obviously, if you put all the pieces together, the leaving OPEC, the way Scott Bessent put it, the way Kudlow and Bessent were talking about it, now I've gone, aha. And I didn't even talk about this when I made a video about them leaving OPEC. They're signaling that they're going to be ramping up production, and they're going to be possibly doubling the amount of oil that they're producing. And they have that pipeline that goes out into the Indian Ocean. They don't even need the Strait of Hormuz as much as others do. And if they're signaling they're going to ramp up production, the big issue that's been eating away at public opinion on this war, and that Trump has been managing so delicately this whole time, is the price of oil. So if in the middle of this whole thing, the UAE announces that it's leaving OPEC, which means that they're willing to not stay with the price fixing. OPEC is basically a price fixing scheme. Okay, that's what it is. So by leaving OPEC and saying and signaling that they're going to ramp up production, that also is designed to drive down energy prices. And meanwhile, the United States is helping them out with this dollar swap, which also cements the UAE onto the dollar system. That's what they were talking about. And what they're referring to there, it's not just about the yuan. The UAE during the Biden administration was flirting with being part of the whole BRICS system, which is this whole new system put together by the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians to try to create an alternative to the primacy of the U.S. dollar. And the UAE is now being much more cementing its position as part of the dollar system, and the U.S. is of course helping them out. So it's not just about helping out an ally who's been harmed by the war, but this is all a big signal of designed to drive down oil prices and help the UAE, who's been such a good ally, and help them ramp up their production and make up some of the economic losses that they've had, and then leaving OPEC is a part of that. So it's not, the economic warfare is not only to take down the Iranian regime, it's also, the United States is also supporting a vital ally. And this all feeds into the larger narrative of the UAE. When the dust settles on all this, with the UAE out of OPEC and having deeper relationships and stronger relationships with Israel and the US, this only emphasizes a point I made in my last video about the UAE. I believe that the UAE is betting on the regime actually coming crashing down. And all these other Muslim countries, these other Arab countries in the region who are kind of hedging. And a lot of that hedging is because they're not confident that the regime is going to fall, or they don't want the regime to fall because of the impact that it will have on them. They're going to have a rude awakening when the regime does fall, and they're kind of left out in the cold, if that's what happens, if the regime moves in a pro-Western direction. So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle here. But I think that this economic piece is worthy of our attention. So thanks for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed and subscribe to the Israel 365 channel as well and all that jazz. And thank you so much to all of you for helping grow the channel. I'm going to be heading off to the United States for the next week and a half. So I'm going to be in some different places. We'll see what my studio situation is like in hotel rooms and things. But there might be a couple more videos before I get on the plane. But I'll keep you guys updated on everything that I'm doing. God bless.